The text popped up on my screen just as my driver turned into Fifth Avenue traffic. We've had to rescind your invitation to the Cole Energy Anniversary Gala. I'm sure you understand. We needed space for important guests. I read it twice, then looked out the window at the 70-story building that I owned. 2 hours from now, I'd be sitting at the head of the table of the very company they said I'd never understand. They uninvited me from a party. What they didn't know was I was about to cancel it altogether by buying the hotel. This is how the uninvited daughter became the one holding all the invitations that really matter. The text came in just as the traffic light turned red on Fifth Avenue. My phone buzzed on the console of my Lucid Air, the glow of Manhattan's morning rush reflecting off the windshield. I glanced down. Darling, about the Cole Energy 40th Anniversary Gala this Saturday. We've had to adjust the guest list. So many dignitaries, so many CEOs. I know you'll understand. We just need space for the important guests. Mom. I stared at the screen for a beat too long, then placed the phone face down. Outside, Wall Street was waking up. Suits crossed intersections, coffee in one hand, ambition in the other. Somewhere in the skyline ahead was the steel and glass tower that housed Orion Quantum Systems, my company, the one I built, the one she still calls your little tech thing. A voice broke through the car's Bluetooth. Ms. Cole, my assistant Dylan said crisply, the boardroom is ready. The documents are finalized. Marshall and his executive team are expecting Nova's mysterious CEO at 10. Perfect, 2 hours, that's all. I leaned back into the white leather seat and exhaled slowly. Funny, isn't it? They always had room for the oil lobbyists, the golf club chairman, the legacy board members who still thought fax machines were cutting edge. But not for me. Not for the daughter who traded petroleum for quantum AI and global energy optimization. At last week's family dinner in Houston, my father had chuckled, actually chuckled, when someone mentioned Orion. Avery still tinkers with algorithms, cute little side projects. One day she'll get serious and come help with the real business. Real business, as in the empire that's bleeding money, losing contracts, and whose stock has plummeted 38% since Q3. I remember smiling that night, nodding as I cut into my ribeye. Maybe someday, I said. And Mom, in her Chanel pearls and judgmental tone, added, Sweetheart, you're brilliant, of course, but wouldn't it be more productive to join your father's company instead of running around with software? Software. As if Orion hadn't just signed its 5th international clean energy contract that month. As if the Department of Defense hadn't quietly inked a 7-year AI integration deal with us 3 days ago. The light turned green. The Lucid purred forward. They didn't know, of course. How could they? I stopped explaining what I do years ago. Stopped expecting them to ask. This morning, however, they were about to learn exactly what I do. In 2 hours, I'd walk into the 46th floor of Cole Energy's headquarters, the same floor where my father once declared, "This company stays in the family," before giving his CFO son-in-law the keys and showing me to the catering staff. But today? Today, I walk in as the CEO of the one company that has quietly acquired 47% of Cole's failing shares. The company they thought was a rumor, a faceless fund, a tech whisper on Bloomberg headlines they never bothered to read. Today, I am not the daughter they forgot to invite. I'm the storm they didn't see coming. I reached for my coffee, took a slow sip. The skyline sharpened into view. Steel, ambition, glass, and karma. Ms. Cole, Dylan's voice came again. Would you like me to prep the acquisition deck? I smiled. No need, I said. I wrote it. The elevator chimed softly as it reached the 46th floor of Cole Energy's Houston headquarters. I stepped out into silence, polished marble floors, wall-mounted oil paintings of oil fields, and a receptionist who didn't even look up. Perfect. The boardroom doors loomed ahead, walnut and brass, oversized like everything my father built. His taste always ran toward the theatrical. Inside that room sat a man who had never once shown up for any of my product launches, who still referred to renewable energy as a passing phase, and who thought today's meeting was his rescue. He was half right. Dylan walked beside me, tablet in hand, voice calm. Cole Energy stock dropped another 12% this morning. That brings the quarterly loss to 41%. I didn't flinch. And the media embargo? Holding. No one knows you're the CEO of Orion, not yet. I nodded. Inside the boardroom, the tension was palpable. 12 men in outdated gray suits, 2 women in stiff blazers, a single pot of coffee going cold near the window. At the head of the table, my father, Marshall Cole. Silver hair, crisp navy tie, the last breath of the old empire. He didn't look up when I entered. He didn't recognize me. I wasn't wearing jeans and a t-shirt like at the last family brunch. Today I wore tailored black, power heels, and silence. My assistant cleared his throat. The CEO of Orion Quantum Systems will be joining us shortly, he said. My father exhaled, visibly relieved. Finally, we need this bailout. That company's got momentum. AI, green tech, my board loves buzzwords. With their help, we might stabilize. I walked to the far end of the table and took a seat. No one noticed. The CFO was checking his watch. The legal counsel whispered to the COO. A junior executive Googled Orion Quantum Systems under the table. They were expecting someone in a hoodie, maybe a billionaire recluse flown in from Palo Alto. Not me. My father finally looked my way, brows creased. He squinted. Avery, where's the CEO? I stood. I'm right here, I said evenly. Silence. You could have heard the HVAC kick on. Someone dropped a pen. My father blinked. What? I'm the CEO, founder, majority shareholder of Orion Quantum Systems, the company you're hoping will save yours. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. But you AI software, that little company? Generates more annual revenue than Cole Energy has in the last 5 years, I said calmly. The CFO glanced at his phone, eyes widening. Others followed. One by one, they found the truth. Avery Cole, reclusive founder of Orion Quantum Systems, secures multi-billion-dollar contracts across Asia, Europe, and U.S. defense sectors. One board member leaned forward. She's been buying our shares through Shell subsidiaries for over a year. I turned toward him. That's correct. As of this morning, Orion holds 47% of Cole Energy. This meeting is to propose acquisition of the remaining shares. My father's face had gone pale. You can't, this is a family business. Exactly, I said softly, and I'm family, you just forgot. He stood suddenly, angry, embarrassed, cornered. This is absurd. You've always been reckless. You never understood what real business is. I stepped closer. No, Dad, you never understood that real business evolves, learns, builds. While you clung to crude oil and legacy contracts, I built the future. The room was still. Behind me, Dylan projected live financials onto the screen. Cole's plunging line, Orion's steady ascent. I turned to face the board. We can do this the easy way, or the way that ends in bankruptcy within 90 days. I looked back at my father. I'm not here for revenge, I'm here for results. This isn't a family dinner, this is a boardroom, and I own the table now. My phone buzzed just as the room fell quiet again. I glanced down, another message from my mother. Avery, darling, just confirming, are you terribly upset about the gala? We had to prioritize guests like Governor Stratton and the McAllister Group. I hope you understand. These things require standards. Standards. I almost laughed. Behind me, Dylan stepped up, holding the tablet. Would you like me to respond? No need, I said. Instead, I tapped to project the message onto the 70-inch screen behind me. Gasps around the room. My father turned, reading his wife's words in front of a dozen of his senior executives. His face darkened. That's not relevant to this meeting. It's very relevant, I said smoothly, because your company needs help, and I was disinvited for the sake of important guests. I looked at my father. Tell me, Dad, when exactly did I stop qualifying as important? Before he could answer, my phone rang again, this time a voice call. I answered and tapped speaker. This is Cole, I said. A man's voice came through, crisp and professional. Miss Cole, this is James Lynn, General Manager of the Westmont Grand. Your renovation team has arrived as scheduled for the ballroom reconstruction. Do we have your go-ahead to begin? There was a pause in the room, and then chaos. The Westmont Grand? My father barked. That's Evelyn's Gala. What renovation? I stayed calm. Yes, James, please begin as planned. Refund all event deposits, notify the guests. We'll resume booking once the new space is complete. Understood. Thank you, Miss Cole. Click. My father stared at me like I'd just detonated a bomb in his lobby. You bought the hotel? Last month, I said. Through a shell company. Full acquisition finalized 2 weeks ago. Renovation permits were approved Monday. But the gala was built on an outdated assumption, just like your company. The door slammed open. My mother burst in like a hurricane in heels and pearls. She bypassed security like she owned the place, because for 40 years she believed she did. Avery, she snapped, holding up her phone. What on earth is going on? The hotel just called to cancel the event. Do you have any idea? She stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes scanned the room. Her husband seated in silence, executives whispering, my assistant passing out acquisition folders, and me standing at the head of the table, unshaken. She blinked. What is this? This, I said evenly, is a board meeting, where your uninvited daughter is acquiring your husband's company. She staggered backward slightly, grabbing a chair. No one offered to help. I gestured toward Dylan, who pulled the chair out for her. Please, I added, you'll want to hear this next part. She sat, barely. I turned back to the board, flipping to the next slide. Orion Quantum Systems is prepared to offer a generous per-share price, above market value, but the offer is time-limited. We don't wait forever. My father was still frozen. My mother's mouth moved, but no sound came out. In the corner, someone whispered, "She really owns Orion." And I thought, they uninvited me from their world, from their rooms, from their lives. So I bought the building and canceled the party. Because sometimes when they take your seat at the table, you build your own table. And own the whole damn dining hall. The screen behind me lit up with red lines and falling charts. One represented Cole Energy's stock over the last 5 years, a slow, painful descent. The other, a steady upward curve in green, Orion Quantum Systems. My father finally found his voice. "We've been in business for 40 years, he said, almost pleading. "We've weathered oil crashes, inflation, regulation. We know this industry." "You knew your industry," I replied evenly, "back when it wasn't being outpaced by clean energy, AI-driven distribution, and predictive maintenance tech. While you were sitting in boardrooms polishing legacy deals, I was building a new market." The CFO shifted in his seat, suddenly aware that the room had turned. I advanced to the next slide. 3 months. That's how long you have before Cole Energy hits cash flow insolvency. We've done the audit. Your clients are shifting to automation. Your investors are jumpy. 1 more quarter like this and you'll be forced to liquidate. My mother gasped. "That can't be true, Marshall!" My father didn't look at her. He didn't look at anyone. He just stared at the graph, at the jagged red line that bore his name. "You always said you wanted to pass this company to someone who could take it into the future," I said. "You just didn't think it would be me." He shook his head slowly. "Because you never wanted this. You wanted computers, code. You never cared about—" "Oil?" I cut in. "Pipelines? Rig counts?" "You're right, I didn't. I cared about what comes after. While you were clinging to barrels, I was designing energy-efficient predictive grids. While you laughed at AI, I was building the software that powers 12% of North America's clean energy flow." I turned to the room. "Gentlemen, ladies, what you see on screen is not just a takeover. It's a transfer of vision, a lifeline for a company that has refused to adapt." Silence. Until one voice broke it. "It's more than fair," said board member number 3, Tom Harrison, VP of Operations. "Honestly, it's the only path left." Another voice agreed, then another, heads nodded. My father stood abruptly, his voice low, shaken. "You blindsided me." I met his eyes. "No, you ignored me, that's different." Behind me, Dylan projected a headline from the Wall Street Review. "Orion Quantum nears acquisition of Cole Energy in quiet power play by reclusive CEO Avery Cole." I paused, then turned to the screen again, this time showing photos of Orion's major facilities: Tokyo, Berlin, Austin, Vancouver, hundreds of engineers, dozens of patents, projects that powered hospitals, universities, and entire city blocks. "You wanted a son-in-law to run your empire," I said softly. "I built my own." My mother blinked rapidly. "Avery, this is too much, too fast. Maybe we can find another solution." "No," I said, sharper than before. "You chose who was important. You uninvited me from your world. I didn't argue. I went and built one instead." I turned back to the board. "You have 48 hours to review the offer. After that, we let the market decide." The executives sat straighter now, their eyes no longer on my father, but on me. The air had shifted. This wasn't a rebellion. It was a transition. And I wasn't the uninvited daughter anymore. I was the future they never saw coming. The Westmont Grand Hotel stood like a relic. Cream stone, golden chandeliers. The kind of place built not just to impress, but to remind others they didn't belong. For decades, it had been the Cole family's social stronghold. Now it was under renovation. By me. I watched live drone footage from my phone as workers carried out gilded chairs, dismantled the bar, and carefully removed the Cole Energy crest from the ballroom entrance. Across the table, my mother was frozen, eyes locked on the screen like it might change if she blinked hard enough. "You can't just cancel it," she whispered. "It's already canceled," I said calmly. "Guests are being notified as we speak. Full refunds, complimentary rescheduling at any Orion-affiliated venue." Her eyes snapped to mine. "You don't understand. This isn't just a party. The governor will be in Tokyo next week," I finished. "Keynote speaker at the Orion International Summit. I sent his team the invite myself." My father's face drained of color. "You're hosting the summit?" "I'm funding the summit," I corrected. "We're announcing our Asia-Pacific expansion from the Tokyo Tower. Your gala lost the time slot." They said nothing. No raised voices, no protests. Just silence, the sound of an empire realizing it had been left behind. I turned the tablet toward them again. A new alert flashed on screen. "McAllister Group CEO confirms attendance at Orion Gala in Tokyo. Sponsors include Samsung, Tesla, and the United Nations Green Future Fund." Mom let out a short, broken breath. "These are our people." "No," I said. "They were never your people. They're business people. And business moves forward. You taught me that, remember?" I stood slowly. The board members didn't move. Some already had their phones out, booking flights, texting assistants, reshuffling calendars. Social gravity was shifting, and they felt it. The Cole Energy Anniversary Gala, I said, was built on reputation, but reputation without relevance is just nostalgia. My father finally looked up. "What happens now?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Now?" I said. "You have 24 hours to sign the acquisition agreement. After that, Orion pulls the offer, and Cole Energy goes to market as scrap." My mother's voice cracked. "Avery, please, we raised you better than this." I turned. "No, you raised me to smile through being overlooked, to play small so others could feel big, to apologize for being too ambitious, too driven, too much." I paused. "And look where it got you." Behind me, Dylan stepped forward. "Miss Cole, your flight to Tokyo boards in 45 minutes. The press conference is at 10 a.m. local time." I nodded. Then turning back to my parents one last time. "You uninvited me from a party. I rewrote the guest list of an entire industry." The room was silent. But the power had spoken. The helicopter blades thundered overhead as I stepped onto the rooftop helipad. Houston's skyline shimmered beneath the midday sun, glittering with glass, steel, and pride that hadn't aged well. Behind me, the boardroom still echoed with silence. My father sat slumped in the chair he once ruled from. My mother hadn't spoken since I stood. The guests she worshipped had already RSVP'd to Tokyo. And I was done waiting for a seat at anyone's table. Dylan handed me the final acquisition folders. "Your jet's ready, flight path cleared, weather smooth all the way to Japan." I nodded. "And the press release?" "Scheduled to drop in 10 minutes. As the helicopter door slid open, my phone buzzed. A text. "Avery, I signed the agreement. You outmaneuvered me completely. I thought I was teaching you business. Turns out you were building it better than I ever imagined. Mom's still in shock. The governor just called to congratulate us. You were right. All this time, you were right. Dad." I stared at the screen for a moment. No gloating, no anger, just clarity. I typed a reply. "Success isn't about being invited. It's about having vision, and the courage to act even when no one claps. See you at the shareholders meeting. No RSVP required. Your attendance is mandatory now. Send." The jet waited on the tarmac, sleek, matte black with Orion's silver crest on the tail. My crest, my company, my world. I boarded in silence. Settled into the leather seat as the aircraft surged forward. The clouds outside began to rise as we ascended, Houston shrinking beneath me, with all its legacy weight and social politics and carefully curated guest lists. In front of me, the acquisition documents glowed on the tablet. Cole Energy was no longer a crumbling empire. It was a division of something greater. It was mine. Dylan looked up from across the cabin. "You ready?" I smiled slightly. "I've always been ready. They just didn't notice." He nodded, then leaned back as the jet broke through the clouds, sunlight flooding the cabin. I glanced out the window, America disappearing beneath a blanket of white. Somewhere down there, my parents were finally realizing what happens when you dismiss the daughter who doesn't fit the mold. She learns to melt it, and forge her own. They had uninvited me from a party, so I bought the venue, canceled the guest list, and rewrote the rules. That's not spite. That's just good business. I opened the tablet again, flipping past the press release to the next agenda item, Orion's global expansion. Africa, Scandinavia, South America. New worlds, new systems, new tables to build. Because uninvited daughters make the best CEOs. We don't wait for permission. We create momentum. And the ones who never saw us coming? Well, they eventually call us boss. They said I was just playing with computers, that I'd never understand real business. So I didn't argue. I built something they couldn't ignore. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't loud. It's silent, professional, precise. It's a contract signed in ink and power, a jet taking off while they're still wondering how you got the keys. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or uninvited, just remember, you don't need permission to be great. Subscribe to Sweet Revenge, Happy Ending for more stories that prove you don't crash the party, you buy the venue. And when they don't offer you a seat, build your own table. We'll see you in the next story.